Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Ben Whitaker, you may have heard of him. He fights on Saturday. His first fight for Matchroom. He signed with Matchroom, I'm a left boxer. And he fights a German fella called Benjamin Gavazi. So it's Ben versus Ben on Saturday. We've heard a lot about Ben lately, haven't we? But this is a different type of Ben. And this German fella, Gavazi, 19 wins with 13 KOs, one defeat, which was in his debut. His debut was back in 2018, so he's been around for a little while now. He lost a 4-round decision against another undefeated guy. No shame in that, Carried on. He's fought almost all of his fights in Germany. Oh, excuse me, I'm yawning. It's been a long day. He's fought most of his fights in Germany. And like I say, 13 of those 19 wins have been by KO. But there are no real names on it. And in fact, you might say that Benjamin Gavazi himself is not really a name. If you're a German boxing fan, you may know far more about this guy than I do. I may have heard of him. I may have even seen a couple of undercard fights because I watch an awful lot of boxing, like some of you, I'm sure. But I don't remember anything about Benjamin Gavazi, I've got to be honest. And like I say, he has fought most of his fights in Germany. So if you're a German boxing fan and you know more about this guy, tell me, because leave your comments below. But I did what we all do when we get a more obscure fighter. I trotted off to YouTube. Sure enough, there was a fair bit to watch there. Highlights, And it seems to me that Gavazi he's 30 years of age. He's a sort of stand-up style. One might almost say a traditional European style, where he stands up very sort of erect and, jabs and, likes to sort of jab at longer range. It's a very European, one might almost say amateurish style. He likes his right hand. He likes to sort of jab, bang, the old 1-2, very sort of basic fundamental boxing move. And to be honest with you, he looks to me like he is. There's nothing spectacular about him. There's nothing that stands out about him. He does everything okay, but nothing great. And it is a very textbook style that he has. One of the fights of his I watched was his last fight, actually, against a guy called Melanika. And he won it on a 10th round TKO. He stopped Melanika on his feet. He stopped the guy. But there were times early on when Melanika was definitely catching this guy with not just single punches, but combinations. And that's very, very worrying if you're going to fight someone like Ben Whitaker. Now, Whitaker himself, 9 wins with 6 KOs, a draw against Liam Cameron, which he avenged, if you like. It was, you must remember it, where they went over the top rope and then Whitaker was accused of quitting, of making a meal of it, and Cameron wanted to carry on. Whitaker didn't. And that did a lot of damage, I think, to Ben Whitaker's image. He was always, the proverbial Marmite character, where if you like all the flashy stuff, all the, whatever the word is, all that, look at me, I'm great, flashy, showboating in the ring. If you like all that stuff, that's fine. You probably like Ben Whitaker. I don't. I think it's a load of crap. If I watch a boxing match, I want to see boxing. I don't want to see some tit sort of, dancing in the middle of the ring or trying to make someone who's quite clearly leagues below him look silly. It almost smacks of being a bully, and there's one thing I hate, it's bullies. So Whitaker, I think, has given that sort of, this very divisive sort of attitude, personality. And frankly, throughout his career, and he turned pro 3.5 years ago now, after an Olympic silver medal that he won, he hasn't really done anything. He hasn't really beaten anyone. For example, in 2024, was it a year and a half ago, maybe more than a year and a half ago now, he fought a guy called Leon Willings, who was 7-1. Willings is a sort of area level fighter, and he got floored in the first round, but he went the 8-round distance. And, you know, Willings was only a young kid, I think about 22 at the time, something like that. And then he lost another couple of fights on points, including one to a journeyman. He's never been stopped, Willings, but it does give you an idea of, you know, the sort of level that Whitaker has been stuck at, and yet, I mean, 10 fights in, 3.5 years. You'd think if he was and against very modest opposition, the finest opponent he's fought is Liam Cameron. Okay, he stopped him in the rematch in 2 rounds, fair enough, but you would have expected far more in 3.5 years from Ben Whitaker. Now, getting back to that first Cameron fight, these things happen. You know, he went over the top rope and he got injured, and so okay, that happens. But Whitaker's reaction to it, I think, is very intriguing, because it wasn't just the fact that he appeared to make the most of an injury, shall we say, and opt out of carrying on in that fight. It was his overall demeanour afterwards, which I can't really find the words for it, but it seemed to me to be rather telling of a fighter who had turned pro with a big fanfare, with a big signing on fee as well to boxer. And then, to be honest with you, once the going got tough, he didn't like it up him, shall we say. He looked very... the phrase that springs to mind is self-entitled, as if things, well, are not going my way. Why is this? I'm the star. I'm meant to be beating this guy, you know. It was that sort of attitude, and, oh, it's not fair. I'm taking my ball and going home, you know. And he had that spoilt brat air to him. Now, that may not be a permanent thing, and it's quite possible that that first Liam Cameron fight was a wake-up call for him, almost like a statement that said, do you want to be a fighter or not? Because if you don't, opt out now. And he had to go away and sort of reflect on what had happened. And he may have come back with a far different attitude, because sometimes you get a wake-up call. Maybe Whitaker got that wake-up call. And in the second fight, he looked far better. You know, he tagged Cameron, you know, and stopped him in 2 rounds. And yeah, it was convincing. Yeah. He looked sharper. He looked far better. He looked more on it in terms of concentration, motivation. And he to this day, he's the only person to stop Liam Cameron. You know, now Cameron came back recently, scored a victory over Troy Jones, which a lot of people disputed, but it was a good win. Could have gone, one of those could have gone either way. I do understand why some people thought Troy Jones won, but I don't begrudge Cameron getting the rub of the green, because he never has in the past. He's had a very, very unlucky career. Was banned for quite a while. The punishment was way too long. It was full 5-year ban for a cocaine failure. Cocaine failure, good way of putting it, isn't it? So he's had a tough career. I don't begrudge him getting there, although it's not really fair on Troy Jones if you think Troy Jones won, of course. But the point is that Cameron, he does have some ability. And in the rematch, Whitaker got rid of him pretty quick. Now, after that, he signed to DAZN. They are looking for, you know, to pump him up as being the big star, which is really what Boxer should have done 3.5 years ago. He has had injuries, Ben Whitaker, but there's no denying his talent. He's very fast, very slick. He's tall. He's about 6'3", which is tall for a light heavyweight. And to be honest with you, the talent, the ability, it's there. It just hasn't come out yet. And if he has sort of reassessed himself as well as his career, he, you know, perhaps we'll see that talent in the ring. We've seen flashes of it. We've seen little helpings of it, maybe the odd spoonful here and there, but we haven't seen the overall thing. Now, are we going to see it against Benjamin Gavazi? Well, quite possibly, because I haven't seen Gavazi, and I've seen most of, if not all, of Ben Whittaker's fights. I think this is a pretty easy fight for Whittaker if he's on it. I think Gavazi is just too obvious, too textbook for Whittaker. I do not see Whittaker having too many problems with Gavazi. I think Whittaker, if he starts fast and sharp, he might take a round to have a look at Gavazi, see what he's got. But once he sees a sort of straight up and down guy who stands very, very bolt upright, who throws punches, technically correct, but nothing out of the ordinary, no real imagination there. Once he sees that, I think he'll go to work. And I think we'll see a lot of speed. I think we'll see, I don't know, body punching, I don't know. Whittaker tends to neglect the body in his fights. He's an orthodox fighter, Whittaker, but I think he can fight southpaw as well. I think I've seen him fight southpaw. Gavazi, orthodox, I believe. Yeah, I just see Whittaker going to work after a round or two, putting the punches together in combinations, using his quick feet. Though you'll probably see some of the showboating, the arms dropped and all that, look at me, hit me, and then boom, he hits him, all that bollocks, I think we'll see some of that. I think he'll try and put on a show. This is his debut on DAZN with Matchroom, so he's going to want to look flashy. And to be honest, I don't see Gavazi offering a lot in return. I think Whittaker will chop up Gavazi and wear him down and probably stop him in about 6 rounds, about 5 or 6 rounds. I just don't see Gavazi as having anything to trouble Whittaker, unless Whittaker gets sloppy, unless he's foolish. But will he do it? No, I think he'll be on it. This is his debut. This is almost like a second debut, a second career, if you like, for Whittaker. After being very flat for the last 3.5 years and doing nothing, if he makes a statement with a good knockout, a good stoppage, then I think it's almost like the start again. He's gone back to the start. I think he said this in interviews as well, Whittaker. But I just don't see Gavazi having anything to bother him. I think he'll chop up Gavazi and probably stop him in about 6 rounds. This is a 10-round fight, not a 12-round fight, although there is some WBC silver title on the line. I would have thought that would be a 12-rounder, but no, it's 10. But yeah, a win for Ben Whittaker by stoppage. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Or maybe you disagree, which is fine. Leave your comments below. And thank you very much for watching the video. If you liked it, hit the like button. And if you want to join us, hit the subscribe button as well. All right. I've had a long day. I'm very tired. I hope you're doing all right anyway. But thanks for watching again, and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for now. I'll get you later. Bye for now.